Welcome to the Fulfillment Game. Here, we have meaningful conversations in a context grounded in love and generosity with accomplished professionals exploring life and their work beyond just material accomplishments. I'm your host, Amit Sood. Today we have Roger Pilat. Roger is a holistic partner, a guide, advisor, and a transition doula for individuals and organizations. Roger is a retired US Army veteran and with a deep background in leadership, operations, and training. Later, as a Reiki master, he has studied energy based healing. Now, Roger brings his life's work and an intent to hold sacred spaces for individuals and organizations in both military and individuals and civilian sectors, seeking clarity, purpose, and positive change. So, Roger, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, I mean, I appreciate it. I
Roger,
did really be asking me to come on. When you reached out, we had that conversation, a week or so ago. It was nice to sit down with people like-minded. It's always a good thing to
It's a
work
pleasure
with.
to have you. It's a pleasure to have you here over, Roger. And there is such a transition that you've made. What did it take for an army man to become a holistic partner? And what is it? What made you pick this title, the holistic partner? Tell us about you, Roger.
Oh boy, it was a long time making. My military career comes in two parts. I originally went in 1991, and I went in, I was originally a combat medic. That's what I did. And then I was out for a while, got married, had children, started a career, and that was my introduction into the operations field, training. And then, as fate would have it, the company I worked for, they merged with another company, and then transition ensued. And the transition was not easy, to say the least. I found myself back with the military in 2008. I worked full time for the Massachusetts National Guard. I rejoined as an infantryman. Of all things, at the age of 36, I became an infantryman. And I started working for the Military Funeral Honors Program. And that was a lot more than I even thought it would turn out being. That became a significant part of my growth more afterwards than it was during that time. I was very good at what I did, very good. But when you deal with death on a day in and day out basis, you deal with people that are transitioning in one way or another, whether it's the person that is transitioning. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I could really intuitively key in on the people that were transitioning to whatever is next for all of us, but also the people that were going through that transition of losing a loved one. Growing up, I was terrified of death myself. And looking back as well, I also realized that transition played a role in a lot of things in my life, starting from a very young age. So transition was always there. There were always these different things to deal with. And I did not grow up in an environment where there was a lot of conversation. I'm a Gen X kid. Like a lot of Gen X kids, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation about a whole lot of anything, let alone therapies or understanding. So you start to develop things that you use to soothe, I guess is a good word, carrying that along. And then going back into the military, I deployed to Afghanistan in 2011. And that was, my deployment was pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. I prepared myself the best I could for what I was going to see. And I saw in what I thought I was going to see, and I dealt with what I thought I was going to deal with. And you see, again, death and destruction, right? It's a pattern, and it continued to be a pattern. When I returned, I was recruited back into the military funeral honors program. By the time I was done in funeral honors, I had done almost 3,500 or more funerals. And I eventually worked my way into an operations position at a brigade level, which a brigade level has several battalions and units under them. So we're talking 12 to 1,400 soldiers at a time. It varied. So once again, taking care of people, it seems to be the one of those things that just follows me. And that did eventually play a role in when I did retire, what was I going to do? And when I did retire, it was difficult. It was a difficult transition because you do lose your identity, so to speak. Because you all of a sudden I was a non-commissioned officer, so I was at a company grade level teaching. Right, I've always had teaching in my background. I've always done that. I knew that if I wasn't going to be going overseas or fighting for the country, then these kids would, right? Potentially. How do I keep them doing the right things, keeping them alive, keeping them doing the right things for others? I knew, like, when I went to Afghanistan, you know what? 95% of the people there were just so wonderful. They were just good people. And I was certainly proud to be with them. I can't tell you how many times, even the times I sat with many people, the locals, just simply having a cup of chai, right? And or having something to eat with them. Those times far outweigh the times of difficulty, right? Way outweigh them. And again, looking back, that transition back home was probably the toughest, even with some of the things that did happen while I was there. You realize how precious life is. And there's just some things you can't stop, right? So you just go on this journey of trying to find out, okay, what does this all mean in terms of the universe? I didn't really grow up necessarily religious. We talked before, and I'm from the Northeast here in the United States. It's very heavily Catholic up where I grew up, around the Boston area. So I grew up. I was baptized Catholic, but I wouldn't consider ourselves these great Catholics. Didn't go to church every Sunday, but certainly there were times throughout the year where it was very important to my family. But what I was missing coming out of a lot of that I didn't really find until maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago was sort of a need or a desire to want to understand it from a spiritual standpoint. And that's where things made the turn for me anyway. Really interested in just different teachings out there, different ways to understand. I look at my own children and I think, okay, I heavily believe in science. I believe a lot of what science tells me, right? But I also think that there are things out there that we just don't understand either. And it's hard for me to look at my kids and think, how does something that complex just appear, right? Like, how is that grown? And when I dig deeper into, like, even how my own brain works, and how when I talk to people and how I listen to how they process and what their perspectives are, you realize how complex the brain really is and what it can actually do, how powerful it actually is. But even going beyond that, how everything connects with each other, the body, the mind, right? And I'll say soul, but understanding that even in Buddhism, you say soul, they'll look at you funny because they're thinking consciousness. So you can interchange those if you'd like, you can do that. But for me, it's how do those things work together? And in times of transition, how do you bring yourself back to center? Mm-hmm. So when I think back to my own transitions in and out of life and how that works, I didn't always take the easy road. I really didn't. I came back, I had I can't say I have PTSD, moral injury, guilt, shame, anxiety, depression, like medications and therapies. And I ended up in substance use and suicidal ideation. And so it really went into these really dark places. And there were I'd say more than once, I found myself just barely alive. I was literally, there was one point I woke up in the hospital and I woke up and I was thinking, okay, did I do it? Did I do it? Did I do it this time? And I realized I didn't. I was pissed. I really was. I was mad. I was mad that I was still there. And it was, at some point you have this sort of, okay, it's clearly not going to be all that easy. So, all right, what do I do with this? Right? What do I do with this? Somehow, some way, my body, my mind, my spirit, something is fighting. Right? Something is fighting to be here, to stay here, to do something. Okay. So I found a way to persevere, even at the most darkest times. So, all right, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? And I think that was probably the point where I really started not really challenging so much as just trying to learn and understand it. I was no longer listening to, you have to be happy, right? You get these social cues of what you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to be, and you're supposed to do this or you're supposed to do that. And I stopped listening to a lot of that stuff. And I just realized that, you know what? I'm just looking for peace, right? That's what I'm chasing. I'm chasing peace. And in developing that, I just tried so many different avenues, and I was going to try as many as I needed to figure out what worked for me. And in doing so, I realized that there are a lot of practices that work for different people. I'm not an artist, right? My daughter is an artist. She's the artist, right? And she's had her struggles. That works for her, right? So I love it. Let's explore it. Let's do more, right? Make art. I have some art pieces around my home here that she's done, and that works for her, and that's a beautiful thing. I got into energy healing because it was just something that I heard. I had tried it myself. I was unsure of it myself at the time. And I thought, you know what? People have their own way of doing it. Let me just see if I can do it for myself. If it's something, maybe I can learn it. Maybe I can do it for myself. And so I did it. I took level 1 training. I figured, what the heck? And I kind of liked it. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll do another level. And next thing, it evolved, and I became a Reiki master. And but I didn't want to stop there. I wanted to continue on. And so I did. I continued on, and I just started exploring, what did mindfulness mean? What did meditation mean? What did breathing, right? Something that we take for granted every single day, but something that you have available to you 24/7, costs absolutely nothing. And if you can learn how to do that breath work, it's the quickest thing to what is the next right thing that you can do to bring you back to center, right? It's always about bringing you back to center. We've talked about it before, awareness. Everybody thinks they're aware, right? And for the most part, I think we are, but admittedly, I'm not 100% aware 100% of the time. I get busy, we get busy, things happen, and sometimes you go off a little course, and it's important to bring yourself back. Okay, a lot's been going on. I've got to stop. I've got to bring myself back, recenter, reconnect, and then you can move on. And so bringing yourself back to center is just so important. So that's where I come in, and I try to help people to try to understand, okay, what is your intent? What is your intent? My intent has always been to help others, right? And when I went through my transition retiring, it was, okay, who am I? I literally went back to basics. Well, why do I do half of the things I do in this life? It's to help other people. That's what I do. It's just, it's in my nature. It's who I am. So how do I do that? Okay, let's figure out what that purpose is within that intent. And I just continue to build off of that. Right. So I've got my core, I've got my intent, I know what my intent is. And that's how I build it off of there. And the operations world is no different. People, companies go through change, organizations go through change, they go through transition. If you don't transition, if you don't change, the environment's going to change whether you like it or not. The universe changes constantly. And if you're not on board with it, it's going to leave you behind, right? Nature is constantly in change. If we just let nature do what it does, it's gonna take care of itself. It always does. It's done since Earth has been here. It's always taken care of itself. It's always found a way to heal itself. So if you can connect with nature, your body will always find a way to heal if you allow it, if you give it the things that it needs. If you feed it, if you feed the mind, if you feed the body, if you feed the spirit, the soul, consciousness, you give it a chance, it will survive. It will find a way. But I'd say the biggest thing that I would want people to know, whoever I work with, is their power to, the type of power that they actually have. People can heal themselves. You see it every day. You see it on Facebook. You see it on LinkedIn. You see it on there. You see it on Instagram. It's everywhere. Oh, come and join our group and be healed. And no, that's not how it works. Your awakening comes from within. Your healing comes from within. I don't heal anybody. I am a partner, right? I am a guide, a conduit. That's what I do. That's what I'm trying to show, is that you are the one that heals, not me. I'm just trying to eliminate the speed bumps, right? The roadblocks that are there that I know I place in front of me. So when I need help, I know I've got a Reiki master, and I go to her and I say, hey, look, I need somebody to remove some roadblocks for me so I can focus on what I need to do. So a lot of that stuff it's just that ground level therapy, if you want to call it therapy, centering. You can call it whatever you want, right? And as long as you're able to sit and bring yourself back, even if it's for 5 minutes. We joked about this. None of us are trying to be Buddhist monks. If that's what I wanted, I'd go to India. I joined a monastery, and I would do that, right? But I live in this world, and here in my bubble in Orlando, Florida, and with my wife and my kids, and right, and you don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to do anything. Your practice is your practice, and it's yours, and that's important. And if somebody's trying to tell you that you have to do a meditation a certain way, yeah, that doesn't work. And you've got to because you're the one that's ultimately got to get out of it what you're putting into it. So if you're constantly thinking about, am I doing this right? Worried about, I can't stop myself from thinking. Yeah, we have 70,000 thoughts a day. I'm not special. I don't think I'm going to stop all my thoughts, but I give it a place to go so that I can soothe myself, I can calm myself, and now I can start doing the real work.
Let me ask a question, Roger, that's showing up for me. If you had a way to reach that man in the hospital, the man who woke up with disappointment that he's not done it yet, he's woken up again and he's in the hospital, what would you like him to know? The bottom line, that this is what I want you to know and remember. This is what matters. What did he need to know?
What he needed to know was that it was okay to not be okay. He needed to know that it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't. doesn't have to be perfect at all. And sorry about that, my dog's anonymous. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a perfect thing. And I guess just persist, just keep working, right? No, give yourself grace. I didn't give myself a lot of grace. I judged myself a lot, and I had a lot of expectations on myself, and that's something that I really had to work through. And it took a lot of time just simply that was something I worked on during my meditation. Sometimes meditation isn't the prettiest because sometimes you got to do some real work. But I didn't do that before I was ready. I made sure I was ready before I dove into something like that. And I wasn't trying to fix everything all at the same time. I took my time and I realized, okay, this doesn't have to be an all or nothing deal. I was very impatient for a long time. I've got to fix it because I've got to do this and then I have to do that and then I've got to do this. And everything was now.
And that's the training, isn't it? That's the way that we are brought up too. And Raja, you were a teacher back in the army, a leader, leading young men, and then out of the army, a teacher too. Take me through the journey of a young man who finds himself, he makes up his mind to join the army, the emotional journey he makes. What does he, what does his heart go through as the various cycles of emotions until the cycle completes itself and he finds himself complete?
Oh boy. I kind of feel like you kind of go through your life and you're just adding pieces, right? You're trying to learn, you're trying to remain teachable as much as you possibly can. The journey I took just happened to be the journey I needed to take.
How about sharing from the point of view of a teacher, from a journey of a young man, and not you, but now you're looking at somebody, actually the people, what do they go through? I'm curious. Army has a lot of glory too. Of course, it's fantastic. There is great camaraderie, there is great contribution,
Sure.
and fighting for a cause, a greater good. But yeah. And now I'm curious that a young man at his prime now chooses to join the army. He has a certain kind of emotions. I'm trying to understand what he's going through when he finds himself training and then actually in action on the front and then coming back. And what is where is it that the pain begins? Why is it that it comes to be? Is it because so I'm curious, what are the cycles that a person goes through trying to understand a journey?
So I can say for me, because mine was in two parts. So when I originally went in, I had done something that nobody in my immediate family had done. And I found out much later that my grandfather's brothers were actually in World War II. I didn't know that until much later, but I didn't even tell anybody I joined. I just joined. But mom was not super excited with me over that, but whatever. But I was just determined to do something on my own, outside myself, bigger than myself, right? And I did that and I made it through. And I was not a kid. I wouldn't say that I was in the in crowd growing up or anything like that. When you go through basic training, yeah, it kind of sucks. But you're with other people from all over with different backgrounds, and you're there together and you're going through the same thing, all of you. And there's something to be said about that. You're experiencing something together. And when you experience something together, you create a bond that is just different than anywhere else. When you join the military, ultimately, your first job is to be a soldier, an airman, a Marine, a seaman. That's your first job, regardless of what military occupational specialty you sign up for. Your first job is always to be that soldier. In my case, it was a soldier. Defend at any cost, right? And there's a certain amount of you acceptance, I guess you could say, that the world can be a very dangerous place, right? But we're in it together. We're in it together, and that's fine. And then in my case, I went to military field honors. Now I could go to the mental health rabbit hole with that one, why it led me there, but I had a very healthy respect for the men and women that came before me.
Mm.
And there was something about the just how it worked, just what I saw, the movements, uh the reverence, just everything. It just was sharp, it was smooth, it was the drill and ceremony, everything. To me, it was like awe, right? And what you don't count on is being somebody that is, in my case, an empath who doesn't know it at the time, with an intuition that I didn't know at the time, going through that day in and day out, 3, 4, 5 funerals a day, sometimes 6, sometimes 7 days a week.
Wow.
Then you go overseas and then you see death and destruction, and you're involved with things, and you see it, and the adrenaline pumps, and but again, you're in a community, you're together, right? And there's a certain acceptance of, okay, there's violence, right? You're going to see it. You've got to accept it, because if you don't, you're not going to make it out of this place. So you do. And my goal at the time as an NCO was to bring my guys home, to take care of them. That's all I cared about. So there was some simplicity in there as well. It was very simple in terms of my job is to take care of these kids. That's my job. At the time, I was almost 40 years old. So I was an older guy in an infantry unit. So I was automatically the old guy walking into it's a young man's game, right? But that's how I looked at it. These are young kids. My job is to take care of them. And so the simplicity there was helpful. But at almost 40, you look and you go to what we call ramp ceremonies, killed in action kids. And you look and you say, what the hell's going on here? I don't get it. And I don't know that you always look at it. I just don't see how you get that. And then you come home in the transition and you realize, wow, the world didn't stop revolving while I was away, right? The family unit, they evolved and they did different things. They picked up my slack, and now you're thinking, all right, how do I fit in here? Okay, this is different. I don't really know where I fit in. So you go through that transition, and the military evolves, but I don't know that they, at that time anyway, that they evolved as well as they should have evolved. And I still think we're playing catch up. The guys that are coming out today, I don't know that we're prepared. You deal with the VA system, and it's a hard system to navigate. I knew it was time for me to retire where I was just not okay anymore with the acceptance. I wanted to follow my path of the heart. I realized that there was something there. At the time, I didn't realize it. That happened all in my transition. I knew I just wanted to follow a different path. And then how do I turn that path into a different type of community? And where does that community go? Because everybody talks about family, community, this and that, but not everybody walks the walk. We talk about it a lot, but we don't actually do it. So how do I do that? So for me, it was realigning what my intent was, right? There was a time during my service where it was that keeping the peace, so to speak, was through a different kind of strength. I show a different kind of strength now than I did before. Now it's more, how do I become part of how does the me become part of the we, right? How do I utilize what I can do as part of the collective consciousness? And you think in the grand scheme of things, it really does come back to something Ram Dass said, we're all walking each other home, right?
Mm.
And how can you be that person? And for me, I just go back to things that I've always done, which was sitting with others in empathy and
Mm.
compassion. My intuition is going to read people immediately, whether I like it or whether I don't. It's automatically going to feed that. I met with a friend a couple of weeks back, and before I even met with him, I had these things pop up, these visions, and I started peppering him with questions afterwards. And after talking with him, I realized why I was having these things pop up. It all made sense in the end, but at the time I didn't know. But it was just an occasion where clearly we needed to just sit and just talk, just be there. No expectations, no judgment, none of that. Just be. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do for somebody. That's probably one of the greatest gifts you can give to somebody is to just be there. What is your intent? Where do we want to go? Where do you want to go? Right? Let's figure out what that is. And then give me that and let me help you and try to determine where we need to go with this. All right. Let's figure out the best avenue.
So if one was to ask about that precise question, as Ramdas said, we are walking each other home. Where is home for Roger? What is this place of home that Roger has come to believe where we are all headed ultimately?
Huh. Your guess is as good as mine, but what I know of home right now, my home has always been here in my heart. It's always there. So no matter where I am in the world, it's there, right? It's always there. And coming from the Reiki master, right? Your heart chakra is in the middle. And it's always in the middle. And there's a reason why it's always in the middle. All right. I believe that. What's beyond this? I don't know, but I'm going to collect as much information as I can before I get there. Maybe I'll be a little bit more prepared. Maybe it'll make a little bit more sense. But who knows, right?
Yeah. And
who knows? How do I know we're not living in heaven right now? I don't know. I mean,
absolutely. I was also drawn to say the same, that the place that you speak about as the heart, and less said, the better. Yeah, it's a felt place, is what I sensed when you were talking about me too.
I think that's always where home is, right? And that heart is collective.
Yeah.
We're a mirror, right? And we talked about the mirror before. A mirror you put that mirror up, and I'm a mirror of you, and you're a mirror of me. That's what it's supposed to be, right? And some people don't like that mirror, and that's okay. But ultimately, we have to look at that mirror. We have to, right? And in transition, when you make the ultimate transition, there's no game of chicken on that.
I remember now, that reminds me, Roger, when the first time when we spoke, you spoke about how sometimes with your clients and people that you're working with, it helps to tell them to face the mirror and say to themselves what they're saying to you. Say it to yourself. Say it to yourself in your face. What is this about? What is this facing about? Say a little bit more about this.
If you can, when I sit with somebody, you think about speaking to somebody from the path of the heart, right? For love. Love can be, it's not always pretty. Sometimes it's a hard conversation. And if it's done out of that caring, out of that love, there's nothing wrong with this. And there are times, and you've got to put the mirror up. You've got to look in the mirror, and you've got to be able to say something. If you really believe in something, put the mirror up. Say it to yourself. Say it. Just look at yourself in the eye. And if you blink before you say it, you're playing chicken with yourself, right? If you can honestly look into that mirror and say it, whatever it is, what you believe, what your goal is, and you can really feel it and you feel it deep, then okay, let's work with it. Let's work with it. I'll meet you wherever you want to be met. Right? It's okay with me. All right. We just want to make sure that we know where that is. Right. Let's find that starting point. But it's always an exercise in being able to look in that mirror and be honest with yourself. And that was one of the things I had to do for me, was be honest with myself. This is what I'm doing. This is my failures, but this is also where I'm doing pretty damn good at too. I'm doing good here, but this is where I'm losing the plot here. This is what's happening. And it's same thing as self-awareness, right? What am I doing? Where am I at in this whole process? Look the mirror up, look in the mirror. If you can look in the mirror and you can be honest with yourself without blinking, then you might be onto something.
Yeah. Beautiful. Roger, what would you like your life henceforth to stand for? How would you like to be remembered?
Oh boy, what would I like to be remembered? I think for me, I think I'm just trying to I don't know if there's a word that I want to put in here, honestly. I want people to think of me and feel me.
Wow.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but just know I want them to feel the love that I have for them. Even if they don't know me, even if I don't know them. Know my sincere appreciation and love for who they are. So I don't know that I necessarily have a word. I think it's just know that I'm there.
Wow. Wow, that was unbelievably beautiful, Roger.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's as if inviting them to see and hear. How do I put it in words? It's coming from the very essence of who you are.
We talked about this the other day when were just talking, which is I sometimes again, no judgment, no expectation goes in conversation. It's not just with yourself, right? Which you deserve for yourself, but it's with other people. Having other people feel like, okay, no judgment, no expectation. I can just speak. Yeah, that's the idea. Go ahead. And you nailed that too, that sometimes there's just not a word that you can use. You can use that, the emotions wheel and all that other fun stuff. And sometimes it's just not there. There's just not a particular word, but we're so attached to words because we have to define everything. And I think sometimes your intuition, your gut, if that's what you want to call it, whatever it is. Sometimes you just got to go with it. And I think sometimes you got to trust yourself to know that this feels right. This feels like I'm going in the direction I should be going into. It's going to take work, and you got to be willing to do the work. And as long as you're willing to do the work, I was willing to do the work, and I'm still working. It's an everyday thing. I'm constantly evolving. I have to. We all have to, but it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes some of the evolving is about paying attention to the kind of expression which cannot come in words. And you spoke of it really beautifully. Roger, what are we getting into? What is this world coming to? What is coming in the world and how does one prepare itself? What would be a message to, say, the young?
I try to what I tell my kids is just pay attention. Pay attention. Speak to one another. We have the tendency to speak at one another. We have the tendency to constantly be in competition with one another. We've had these constant messages for decades. We watch each other horizontally. What do you have that I don't have? That's not what our ancient ancestors did. They had to band together. That was a true community, right? If they didn't, they wouldn't survive. They had to. They had a greater purpose. It wasn't built in anything other than their survival, each other, right? It wasn't about money. It wasn't about religion. It wasn't about anything else. It was about, okay, we're here. What can we build for our children and their children, right? How do we survive? How do we take care of each other, right? We still have that DNA. The DNA is still there. It's still in us.
Yeah.
Never forget where you came from. all this great music that you listen to now. It's debatable. I grew up and I listened to the 80s and 90s music. So, your music today is debatable, but yeah, but it all came from someplace. Honor that. Honor where it came from. You don't have to live like I lived. I don't want you to. The idea is to build something greater than that, better than that, however you want to view. You're not supposed to live my life. I don't want you to. But honor that, but ultimately follow your intuition. Right? I like to say I lived at that crossroads of intuition and critical thinking. There's something to be said about both. Don't ignore that intuition. Be thoughtful about what you're doing and how you're doing it, but don't ignore your intuition. Don't ignore what your gut and what your heart is telling you. And if you can honestly say that you're living through that path of the heart, you're doing something. You're doing something.
Wow.
And that's important.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that powerfully, Roger. This was rare. There's something really powerful in hearing from the heart. And what you share, what you spoke about is not just your journey, it's your truth and coming straight from the very essence. And it goes therefore directly to the heart. It speaks to the heart. And thank you for your contribution, for sharing.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's really great to talk to you. I really look forward to having another conversation and trading ideas again with you.
It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, and it continues to be a pleasure, Roger. And the same for you. I think you make a contribution by sharing yourself, coming from the depths that you do, and it has taken the effort and experiences to be where you are. Thanks for this. And
thank you very much.
We should continue to have more conversations around these ideas.
Awesome.
And to everybody listening, thanks very much for joining in, guys. This is an invitation to pause and pay attention, as Roger said. Say your own truths to yourself and let it sink in. Honor your heart. And with that, until next time, take care, stay connected, and switch to the game that would fulfill you. Don't forget to like and follow this channel for more such conversations. Thank you so much.